Today, you're going to hear a fantastic case study about retirement planning and wealth building. I've actually received an email to give a quick opinion, and it reads, I enjoy your case studies very much, thank you, and I seek your guidance and please censor where needed and appropriate. I've taken the instructions, and these are details that I can share with you. She's right now in her early 50s, and she has 2 children around the age of 20. I have to assume that she's going to be single. She's currently still working, and these are her assets. You'd see shaded in red are property assets. The first one is a 5-room HDB flat. The second is an investment property in Singapore. The third is an overseas property. And since property constitutes to so much of the entire asset base, the first segment for today's case study will be regarding that. The second part of today's case study will be touching on her other assets, which include insurance, short-term bonds, foreign currency, and goodwill loan. Last but not least, we'll end off today's entire discussions touching about CPF and mid to long-term investments because these two impact her financial freedom. So if you're keen to listen out also for pointers, continue watching on. Hi guys, welcome back. Without further ado, let's start with the first segment, which regards her property assets. If we focus on this, the first one is a 5-room HDB flat that is about 40 years old and fully paid up already. Total estimated value of it, $610,000. There is a second property which is an investment property, which is a 2-room condo that has just TOP'd. The value of the flat in her estimate is about $1.5 million and she owns 60%. The remaining loan is $530,000 and luckily she has actually taken up a fixed rate loan at 2.45%, which will last all the way to July 2024. The flat is currently rented out at $4,400 per month. Now when I saw this portion, I've actually asked her, why was the loan only $530,000? And her reply was that the loan tenure was up to 65 years old and she didn't want to stress herself with a monthly repayment of $6,000 to $8,000 per month until the age of 65. That's why she's actually made repayments, and by doing so, she's actually cash flow positive from this investment property. Because it's rented out at $4,400 while her loan is fixed at $4,000. I'm not sure if she's included conservancy charges, property taxes, and impact on personal income taxes. But the key part again is luckily she's locked in at 2.45%. If you're locked in mortgage right now, do note that the best offer is likely from DBS at 4.25%, which could easily bump up the total loan and make the entire investment property cash flow negative. But speaking to her, I'd like to draw everybody's attention. When it comes to property investment, you need to have leverage to do well. Why do I say so? There are 2 charts I'd like to show you. The first is this by SRX. You'll see that there are 2 lines over there. One is the pink median levered returns and the blue is the median unlevered returns. Quite obviously, when you have leverage, the total return rate when you own a condo resale is much higher because you are making money using other people's money. That is property investment 101. Not just that, a second chart done by DBS's research actually shows that when you have a second investment property that is not fully loaned out with an LTV of only 45%, you realize that it's far inferior to when you have one that is on a much bigger leverage ratio. Therefore, when you hear of stories of people making big monies in properties, there are 2 factors. The first, they've rode a few cycles upwards. The second is that there's leverage involved. Speaking to here, however we slice it, you realize that property weighs very heavily in her total net worth of $2.04 million. If we were to compare that against the average Singapore household's asset allocation, you realize that there's definitely significant concentration risk in property assets. Let's fall back to the third property that she has in her portfolio, which is an overseas investment property. This is fully paid up, it's rented at $1,500 per month, but that money is not remitted to Singapore. The earliest liquidation date is 2024-2025 due to poor exchange rates. Speaking to overseas investment properties, many who have invested in Iskandar, Malaysia's properties, have seen big losses because Malaysian ringgit has plummeted against Sing dollar in the last few years. Some other people invest in China, some people invest in New Zealand, and last but not least, I guess the next most popular one might be in Australia. Net with the cost only at $250 per month, this overseas investment property is deriving for her $1,250 per month in passive income. But again, this is kept in the foreign currency exchange, and when it's converted back to Sing dollar, it may become less along the years. So net, if we were to see in terms of cost and revenue, you realize that her total property cost is about $4,365 per month, but she's deriving revenue about $5,900 per month. And when she gets to the age of 65, her condo in Singapore will be fully paid up, and that could free up even more cash flows for her. But if I'm not wrong, that is not in the pipeline. Let's move on to a second question for me, which is, if I liquidate the overseas properties, how do we deploy the cash here? Should I pay up my Singapore mortgage? Should I clear my goodwill loan? Should I top up my CPF or my children's CPF? Or buy S&P 500 on behalf of my kids, as they have a longer runway than me? When we talk about deploying cash, I think there must always be a purpose to things. In terms of financial freedom, to simplify the entire equation, I think we need to aim towards a stage whereby we do not carry any further loans, because loans bring on risk to the entire retirement planning portfolio. Because loan rates can go up, loan rates can go down, and you need mental capacity to manage loans also. Which means any of y'all listening in, whereby you have a universal life or an annuity plan loan, I do strongly suggest to continuously make payments to clear that loan off so that you can get to retirement using those cash flows also and not be leveraged. Then the second part of this is, should she give to her kids' CPF or buy S&P 500 on her kids' behalf? With regards to these two ideas, I'm a strong believer of letting the next generation earn the monies themselves. Why do I say so? If my dad had given me $5 million, I'm pretty sure I won't be having the same work ethic and drive as I have today. I work easily 60 to 70 hours. And if you count out the number of hours, it means that nights are burnt. It means that work is also done on weekends. You cannot get to 60 and 70 hours simply by working on the 9 to 5 mindset. So next generation, when they inherit too much money, I'm always afraid of it impacting their drive and ability to learn how to make monies for themselves. Which means I'm gravitating to suggesting to topping up her own CPF, or if not, buy any investment in her own name. Let's move on to her third question for me regarding properties. I'd like to sell my current HDB flat for a more centrally located one that I can finish paying off by the age of 65. I do not think PLH BTO is an option. However, I may be open to applying for a BTO in an upcoming district. PLH, by the way, is Prime Location Housing, which is a new scheme created by HDB. PLH has slightly different MOP periods. PLH also has slightly different conditions in terms of renting out as compared to a traditional BTO. But back to the point of buying BTOs. BTOs, you need to wait for development. It takes years, so there's disruption. But there's another part, which is, as a single, you can only apply for 2-room flat under HDB BTO. To aim for a 4 or 5-room BTO, you need family nucleus, which means you might need to tie in another partner in future or tie in children's name, which makes the entire equation a lot more complicated. All these may not be ideal, but the problems do not just end there. To buy a HDB flat, regardless of whether it's resale or BTO, the person buying cannot own private properties, the person buying cannot own a current HDB flat or must commit to selling it at least. Which means the entire process will be to sell the overseas property, to sell the Singapore condo, to sell the current 5-room HDB, then she can actually buy a new HDB flat via resale or BTO route. All these various steps makes the entire equation quite complicated. And not just that, the investment properties have more than one person's say in it, and when it comes to property selling, where it becomes very messy, there is going to be a lot of fight on when to sell, how much to sell, and how to exactly split it. So before I lose track on that point, when you buy investment properties, I'll strongly suggest avoid complex structures, avoid teaming up with multiple people to own properties, and then when it comes to selling, everybody has a different opinion, and selling of properties is just not a click of button away. Looking at the situation, I don't think there's a solution that can fit everything that she wants. Maybe there is a need to give up the idea of living nearer to town, and if I were in her shoes, understanding that if I were to buy a second property in Singapore in my name, there'll be a ABSD, additional buyer's stamp duty of 17%. I'll definitely explore all options of keeping the current HDB flat and buying out the 40% remaining stake in the Singapore condo if possible. If these two properties can be kept, then there could be some help for financial freedom, because one can be for rental income. And definitely that means that giving up the overseas investment property is just part of the equation and balancing the books. Now let's switch gears to move on to other assets that she owns. For insurance, there is no hospital insurance, only a term for mortgage, and 50% of the entire value is via an investment-linked plan. The first critique to this is, why not get a hospital insurance ASAP? Maybe there's some pre-existing conditions that she has that does not allow her to qualify. So again, the advice is to buy your health insurance while you are in the pink of health. It makes any application a lot easier. And if she were to be able to buy a private medical insurance, I would suggest, if budgets are a bit tight, to consider plans that cover only government hospitals because they can save on premiums. Then with regards to investment-linked plans, usually they are not too cost-effective. 10-15 years ago, investment-linked plans were the only way to invest and get insurance. But right now, as of today, investment has been made a lot simpler, and investment-linked plans don't carry that value that much. Speak to a qualified advisor to see if it's beneficial to restructure that particular policy. Then next part is cash, $2,800 only. So I actually quizzed her on this because personally I find that quite scary, a low amount, because I have gyros from bills and stuff. I guess you also have. But she's replied that she's actually quite comfortable with it and that her emergency cash are actually stashed inside the next column, which is short-term bonds. These include SSB and T-bills. Then the next part is foreign currency, $415,000 stashed away in an overseas exchange. She's mentioned there lousy exchange rate, which got me guessing. If it's lousy exchange rate, it probably isn't US dollars. It might be sterling pounds, which has depreciated massively against Sing dollar. It might be Australian dollars, which have also depreciated against Sing dollar. So you can hear quite obviously, I'm not a fan of foreign currency. Sing dollar has been strong. And if it were to me, I'll quite simply use that 415k to pay off that goodwill loan and not carry that burden. For Singapore universities, you can actually use your own CPF to pay for some of the school fees, but definitely not so for foreign universities. What that also means is that the children may need to take up student loans themselves. But hey, a lot of student loans nowadays are interest-free for a couple of years first. It goes to show that foreign universities really cost families a lot of money. Even if she were to send them and use that 415k to fully pay it off, she'll be still holding on to that 400,000 goodwill loan that she'll need to repay back, which naturally impacts her entire financial freedom calculation. Which leads to the third segment we have today on assets that contribute to her financial freedom. Two in particular, the first is CPF and the second is mid to long-term investments. No mention about what it is, but I knew the bulk of the contribution comes from CPF. She's mentioned that she's expecting to stop work full-time between the age of 60 to 65, and I think that's absolutely needed, especially if she wants to use income to repay the goodwill loan, build up more mid to long-term financial assets that can provide dividends, and just now I mentioned about buying out the remaining 40% stake, if possible, in the Singapore condo, and of course that carries certain loans that require her income to repay. And if we look in terms of the total net worth breakdown, 2.04 million, if we less away the home, which is $610,000, 5-room HDB flat, if we less away this 400,000 that needs to be paid off, if her children use the entire savings in foreign currency, her net worth probably stands closer to $1 million only, of which 460,000 is stuck in CPF. When I mean stuck, I mean that Medisave cannot be used for consumption for retirement expenses. CPF special account is likely going to contribute towards her CPF retirement account, which will only pay out from the age of 65 onwards. But there's a question on the OA of $100,000. Should this be used to pay down the loan from the condo? The quick answer is quite obviously no, because CPF OA interest rates are 2.5%, while her current loan is locked in at 2.45% until July 2024. Of course, from August 2024, if interest rates are above 2.5%, then jolly well use it to repay. But by then she will reach the age of 55 already, which means that CPF shielding should be considered. CPF shielding, to break it down in simple terms, is to move your SA out so that your OA of 100,000 funnels towards RA first, which eventually compounds at 4% per annum. Then you return back your SA to top up to full retirement sum or enhanced retirement sum, whichever you prefer for your own retirement journey. So hopefully I've given answers to quite a few things. And as always, if you're looking for fee-based, independent, full retirement planning, look for my links below. I can help you on a one-to-one basis. Thank you for watching till here. I think this previous tutorial regarding CPF shielding might be interesting for you. Or the second one, which is a private client of mine who has actually lost $1.15 million. She shared her story generously, and maybe either of these tutorials can help you further in your financial journey. With that, I'll sign off from here, wishing you again a happy new year, and I'll see you again in the future video. Take care as always, goodbye.